The Arctic. The polar night in its most savage state. A colossal wall of ice rises right ahead of us, a solid barrier nearly 3 meters thick. An ordinary ship. It would be crushed into scrap metal in a matter of minutes. But this is a giant icebreaker. Under the vessel's powerful searchlights, the frozen ocean begins to crack. Chunks of ice the size of cars smash against the hull with brutal violence. The ship, a multi-ton behemoth, slowly begins to lift, leaning its entire massive weight directly onto the frozen plains. What on earth is happening here? At first glance, anyone would think this monster is simply ramming its way through, using the sheer brute force of its engines to smash the ice. But the deeper it penetrates into the frozen ocean, the stranger the spectacle becomes. The pressure is so monstrous that the metal of the hull begins to vibrate with a deafening hum. At the stern, the propellers spin at full throttle, whipping up massive vortexes of icy water. Suddenly, boom! Cracks hundreds of meters long radiate outward in every direction around the vessel. It is at this exact moment that you realize the big truth. An icebreaker doesn't destroy ice the way you think it does. Its master secret is completely different. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, because the engineering solutions hidden inside these Arctic giants defy everything we thought was possible. Imagine for a second being trapped inside a steel box. Now imagine that box is being crushed by a hydraulic vise weighing millions of tons. The metal begins to groan, the welds creak to their absolute limit, and the bulkheads burst with a deafening roar. Gives you goosebumps, doesn't it? Well, that is the exact fate of any conventional ship that dares to venture into the ice fields. When water freezes, it expands with a colossal, unforgiving force. It is a pressure so devastating and ruthless that it can crumple the hull of a cargo ship as if it were a simple soda can. In the blink of an eye, human technology is reduced to a pile of twisted wreckage. So, how does an icebreaker manage to survive this frozen hell? What is the master trick behind its design? Stick around, because what you are about to discover next is going to blow your mind. But the icebreaker? It calmly shrugs off this terrifying onslaught. How is that even possible? Well, its ultimate secret doesn't actually lie in the thickness of its armored steel. No, the real magic is all about a unique geometry, a brilliant design trick stolen directly from nature itself. If you were to look at this massive ship from underneath, you wouldn't see the typical flat vertical sides or a sharp traditional keel. Not at all. Instead, marine engineers gave it a perfectly rounded hull, closely resembling the smooth curve of half an eggshell. Think about it. When shifting ice fields begin to close in, trying to crush the vessel from both sides, they can't find a single flat surface to lock onto. The catastrophic crushing force is instantly distributed along a flawless geometric arc. And then a mind-blowing physical phenomenon takes place. Instead of shattering the ship, the crushing pressure of the ice actually squeezes the rounded hull upward. It works exactly like a slippery watermelon seed, pinched hard between your fingertips. Pop. The ship simply rises right above the frozen ocean, safely escaping the deadly grip below. This concept might sound incredibly simple today, but over 130 years ago, the world's top naval experts flatly refused to believe it. They thought it was pure suicide. But in 1893, a legendary polar explorer named Fridtjof Nansen decided to risk everything to prove this theory right. He commissioned a radical, custom-built vessel named the Fram. The Fram featured a completely round hull with absolutely no protruding parts for the ice to catch onto. Nansen planned to do what his contemporaries openly labeled as absolute madness. He was going to voluntarily steer his ship directly into the jaws of the Arctic ice pack, let it freeze solid and drift with the ocean currents all the way to the North Pole. The scientific community went wild. Leading experts publicly predicted that the ship would be obliterated on its very first voyage. In the autumn of that exact year, the trap snapped shut. Heavy, relentless ice fields completely locked in the Fram. Massive, towering ice ridges began to buckle and pile up all around the ship. Solid, multi-ton blocks crashed onto the wooden deck with a deafening roar. The pressure mounted hour by hour, and a horrifying metallic screeching echoed from the dark depths of the hold. It seemed like the end. But right at the most critical, terrifying moment, the secret geometry worked. Instead of snapping like a twig under the unimaginable load, the Fram slowly, majestically rose above the crushing ice mass. Its perfectly rounded bottom effortlessly deflected the pressure. The ship spent 3 whole years trapped in that icy embrace, drifting safely among endless, shifting pressure ridges. When it finally returned home completely intact, the world was stunned. Nansen had proven the theory, and this historic triumph changed shipbuilding forever. Every modern mega icebreaker sailing the oceans today inherited this exact shape. It's this rounded hull that saves them from a frozen grave. But surviving the squeeze is only half the battle. How do they actually smash through a 3-meter wall of ice moving forward? Well, that's where the real engineering madness begins. But then, naval engineers stumbled upon a brand new riddle. How do you actually force this massive, rounded behemoth to move forward when there's a towering vertical wall of solid ice 3 meters thick blocking its path? How do you break through something that literally refuses to budge? What do you think would happen if a multi-ton steel ship accelerated to full throttle and rammed an ice cliff head-on? In any normal scenario, this would instantly crumple the bow like a soda can and cause a catastrophic disaster. Most people are absolutely convinced that an icebreaker slices through the frozen ocean like a giant knife cutting through thick cardboard. But here is the catch. If engineers had made the front of this vessel sharp, the very first high-speed impact would have turned the entire bow into an accordion. The secret to these machines' mind-blowing efficiency lies in an entirely opposite approach. A strategy that completely defies conventional logic. If you take a close look at the bow of a modern Arctic giant, you'll spot a very bizarre feature. It is flat, blunt, and sharply sloped backward at an angle of about 30 degrees. Why on earth would designers intentionally strip the ship of its ability to cut through ice? Here is the scientific reality. The compressive strength of a thick ice sheet is several times higher than its breaking strength when bent. Trying to plow through a 3-meter wall horizontally is a complete and utter waste of engine energy. Therefore, icebreakers don't try to push the ice aside. Instead, they weaponize a completely different force available to every single object on our planet, the unstoppable force of gravity. The way these ships overcome a frozen obstacle looks less like a standard cruise and more like a carefully calculated military assault. The ship charges toward the edge of the frozen field at high speed. But thanks to that brilliant 30-degree sloped bow, the vessel doesn't smash into the ice wall. Instead, it smoothly glides right up on top of it, looking exactly like a massive sea lion hauling its heavy body onto dry land. The multi-ton behemoth literally rises completely out of the water, lifting its entire front section high above the massive ice shelf. And this is where the physics get wild. At this exact moment, Archimedes' principle completely goes out the window, and the ship loses its natural buoyancy. Its entire immense mass, which can skyrocket up to a staggering 30,000 tons, is no longer supported by the ocean. Instead, that terrifying weight crashes down entirely onto the frozen shell below. Under the crushing weight of a small mountain, even the thickest Arctic ice instantly snaps with a deafening, explosive crack. You might think this ingenious physics hack was discovered recently inside a top-secret modern laboratory. But the truth is, the story goes back to 1864 to a merchant named Mikhail Britnev, who faced a devastating financial nightmare. An early, brutal winter freeze in the Gulf of Finland completely halted all maritime navigation, threatening to bankrupt him. Desperate for a solution, Britnev decided to launch a wild experiment that local craftsmen openly mocked. He took a small, ordinary steam tugboat named the Pilot and ordered its bow to be radically modified. He had his workers cut the front of the hull at a sharp 20-degree angle relative to the keel, explicitly copying the old design tricks of ancient Arctic seafaring boats. Bystanders and rivals laughed, certain he had completely ruined the vessel. But the Pilot shocked the entire world. The modified tugboat effortlessly climbed right onto the ice sheets, cracking them wide open under its own weight. The invention was so incredibly successful that nations across the globe immediately bought the design, officially launching the dawn of the global icebreaker fleet. But wait, what happens when weight alone isn't enough? What happens when the ice is so thick that even a 30,000-ton monster gets stuck? That's when engineers have to activate the secret hidden liquid weapons inside the hull. Today, that gravity-defying method has been perfected. But here is the terrifying reality. The moment a 3-meter ice shell cracks open, a brand new trap emerges from the deep. Enormous multi-ton fragments begin to rub against the sides of the ship with monstrous grinding force, tightly wedging the vessel in place. How on earth did engineers manage to make massive steel sheets slide perfectly over frozen water in 40-degree below zero weather? Picture this, a giant steel titan packed with tens of thousands of horsepower, suddenly grinding to a complete, helpless halt in the middle of a frozen ocean. Many people mistakenly think polar ice is as smooth and slick as a holiday skating rink. But they couldn't be more wrong. At minus 40 degrees, Arctic ice changes completely. It turns into ultra-high-strength industrial-grade sandpaper. The friction is so monstrous that it can tightly grip the ship's hull like a vice, turning a multi-million-dollar machine into a stationary target amid endless white fields. So how did designers outsmart the harsh, unforgiving laws of physics? Greater than how do you force giant steel plates to slide effortlessly over bone-dry Arctic ice? Early polar explorers often encountered a deeply frustrating and striking phenomenon. A powerful, roaring vessel would get stuck out of nowhere simply because its vertical sides literally stuck to the ice fields. The physics behind this process are incredibly insidious. Under the intense, concentrated pressure of the ship's weight against the ice, a microscopic film of water forms between the two surfaces. The catch? The exact millisecond the ship slows down or stops, that tiny film of water instantly refreezes. It literally glues the cold metal hull to the ice pack. To make matters worse, the cracking ice shell generates intense static electricity, which heavily strengthens this chemical adhesion. It is the ultimate sub-zero superglue. But in 1970, during demanding trials of a radical new experimental vessel in the freezing conditions of the Baltic Sea, specialists put an advanced protection system to the test to break this icy grip once and for all. The engineers' ultimate solution was ingenious, yet incredibly simple. They literally taught the ship how to breathe underwater. They called it a hull air bubbling system. Along the entire lower section of the ship's sides, deep below the waterline, designers engineered hundreds of specialized high-pressure holes. Inside the beating heart of the ship, they installed massive, roaring compressors that continuously push furious streams of compressed air outward. The result? Up to 1 million air bubbles rush upward along the steel hull at breakneck speed every single minute, creating a continuous, violent boiling effect around the ship. This chaotic water-air curtain completely envelops the submerged part of the icebreaker, acting as a high-tech liquid lubricant. It violently shears heavy ice chunks away from the metal and cuts friction down by nearly half. Even better, the rushing air currents carry smaller ice fragments up and away with them, preventing them from accumulating along the flat sides and creating a deadly compression trap. Thanks to this invisible shield of air, the ship gains the superpower to slide forward confidently, smashing through obstacles without wasting an ounce of its precious engine energy. But what happens when even the bubbles aren't enough? What happens when the Arctic throws a barrier so colossal that the ship is completely brought to its knees? Well, that's when the captain triggers the ultimate secret weapon, a system that makes the entire ship rock back and forth like a cradle. Yet, the brutal northern wilderness always knows how to present severe challenges that defy even the most advanced technologies on Earth. What happens if an ice field simply proves too strong? What if ancient compressed pressure ridges close in and the bubbling air shield along with the giant's immense weight fail to break the blockade? The ship loses all its hard-earned momentum. It gets completely stuck in the middle of a frozen white desert. At this critical, terrifying moment, when all standard methods are completely useless, the captain must execute a unique maneuver. From the outside, it looks like a slow, mesmerizing, and highly dangerous dance. Imagine a steel titan weighing tens of thousands of tons suddenly freezing dead in its tracks. Powerful engines roar at their absolute limit, spitting fire and smoke, but the ship, wedged tight by solid ice, does not advance a single centimeter. It might seem that the multi-meter frozen crust has trapped the vessel forever, sealing its doom. What on earth do you do when there is no way back, and the mounting pressure threatens to split the hull open? Right at this exact second, the captain activates a specialized engineering system that forces the multi-ton machine to do something completely incredible: perform erratic mechanical movements right in the middle of the frozen ocean. When every other method of forcing your way through the ice fields fails entirely, the icebreaker literally begins to rock from side to side. The secret to this trick lies hidden deep within the belly of the vessel, where massive ballast tanks are concealed. These tanks are interconnected by a highly complex network of high-diameter pipes and ultra-powerful high-speed pumps. The moment the bridge instruments register a complete stop and total jamming, a rapid, violent displacement of large liquid masses begins. Enormous volumes of ocean water are aggressively forced from one side of the ship to the other, in just about 2 minutes flat. But how exactly does this artificial rolling help break dense shackles that can sometimes surpass solid concrete in strength? The moment that massive volume of water violently shifts, the ship tilts sharply, lifting one edge high into the air and forcefully slamming the other down. The Colossus's thick steel sides begin to grind against the edge of the frozen field with monstrous lateral friction. That stubborn, adhered layer of ice simply cannot withstand this brutal twisting motion and begins to fracture rapidly. The surrounding ice fields explode with deafening, gunshot-like sounds, and the vessel literally wiggles itself free from the trap. This brilliant, mind-boggling idea was first successfully implemented by Admiral Stepan Makarov on the legendary icebreaker Yermak at the very end of the 19th century. The outstanding naval commander personally designed this historic, world-first Arctic-class ship, overcoming immense resistance and mockery from political skeptics. During grueling trials in 1899 on its way to Spitsbergen, the vessel became hopelessly stuck in massive, towering pressure ridges. No standard methods worked. The voyage seemed doomed. Makarov then calmly ordered the activation of his secret weapon, the special healing tanks. Rivers of water rushed through the internal pipes, forcing the heavy Yermak to tilt violently by 12 degrees. The massive hull shifted, instantly crushing the blocks of ice that held it hostage. However, this constant, brutal battle against the elements required an unbelievable, unsustainable amount of coal, severely limiting the ship's operational range. If humans wanted to truly conquer the poles, they needed a radical new source of energy. The Arctic stood on the brink of a new era, the era of the peaceful atom. Imagine a ship deliberately sailing to a place where absolutely every direction points strictly south. Navigation charts turn into useless blank sheets of paper, compass needles spin wildly out of control. Until that exact moment, no surface vessel in human history had ever reached this mysterious forbidden point on the planet, the North Pole. If a serious breakdown happened out here, the crew would be utterly alone. No other ship on Earth could break through these ancient multi-meter ice sheets to rescue them. The risk was immense, but the greatest triumph in maritime history was waiting at the finish line. For centuries, expeditions had been doomed by one fatal flaw: autonomy. How do you carry enough fuel to survive the Arctic? The answer came from the peaceful atom. Engineers realized that a tiny piece of uranium weighing just a few grams could release as much raw energy as thousands of tons of coal. No more ports, no more refueling. A nuclear engine could run at full throttle for years. But guiding a convoy through known routes is one thing. Making a desperate, blind dash into the unexplored heart of the Central Arctic is a completely different beast. In August 1977, the crew of the nuclear Titan Arctica, commanded by Captain Yuri Kuchiev, decided to do the impossible. Global experts openly laughed, claiming a surface ship could never conquer the North Pole. The path was blocked by frozen fortresses over 4 meters thick. But the Arctica forged ahead, unleashing the fury of its 75,000 horsepower nuclear heart. Then, at the absolute peak of the voyage, disaster struck. Crash. A violent impact shook the entire hull, making the sailors' hearts stop. One of the 3 giant steel propellers, spinning at maximum RPM, had slammed directly into an invisible underwater ice fang, ancient, rock-solid polar ice. The vibration was so terrifyingly violent that the officers on the bridge could barely stand on their feet. If a single blade fractured, the massive ship would lose all steering. Out here, trapped in the eternal ice, that meant total, fatal failure. Captain Kuchiev made a heart-stopping, highly dangerous gamble. He shut down the engines, letting the ice masses close in around them. Divers plunged into the black abyss, working in water temperatures of -2 degrees Celsius. After hours of agonizing, suffocating silence on board, they finally surfaced with unbelievable news. The propeller had held. The ultra-durable metal only suffered a few scratches. On August 17, 1977, at exactly 4 a.m., the instruments locked onto history. The Arctica became the first surface ship to reach the geographical summit of the Earth. Crew members poured out onto the ice, weeping with joy, holding a surreal round dance around the polar axis. The myth of the impenetrable Arctic was shattered forever. But the wilderness wasn't done fighting. Ahead lay an even more brutal nightmare, surviving a rescue mission in the pitch-black horror of the polar night. Imagine a desperate distress signal slicing through the absolute darkness of the polar night. A massive cargo ship is groaning loudly, its hull buckling under the onslaught of an invisible, icy vice. Civilian ships are simply not built for this hell. Their thin hulls rip open, and trying to launch a rescue in the freezing dark is a logistical nightmare. Time is measured in ticks of a clock. This exact drama unfolded in 1983 in the eastern Arctic. Nature blindsided the maritime world when a brutal winter arrived an entire month ahead of schedule. Fierce storm winds instantly shoved massive ice fields into key shipping lanes, locking them down instantly. Suddenly, over 50 massive cargo ships found themselves helplessly trapped in the Chukchi Sea. Fuel reserves were bleeding out rapidly, and the ice wall grew thicker with every passing hour. The nightmare hit its peak when the cargo ship Nina Gaidat found itself at the absolute epicenter of the crushing fields. Towering ice ridges as high as a 3-story building began to march forward, squeezing the defenseless ship with apocalyptic force. Its hull was torn open with gaping holes. Its propellers were completely jammed. By October 9th, the pressure became too great. The ship began to founder, forcing the crew to execute a terrifying evacuation onto the shifting ice sheets. Watching their vessel sink into the dark ocean, they were left completely exposed, waiting for a miracle. To save the dying fleet, the Soviet Union unleashed its absolute best assets, the nuclear mega icebreakers Arctica and Sibir. These machines were pushed to their absolute melting point limits. The tension on the bridges was suffocating. The entire operation had to be executed in the middle of a raging Arctic storm with practically zero visibility. Captains took jaw-dropping risks. They had to steer their massive nuclear hulls within inches of the trapped civilian ships, using their heavy, reinforced sterns to literally smash the ice ridges off the cargo hulls. One single slip of the controls, one wrong maneuver, and the heavy icebreaker would instantly crush the very ship it was trying to save. The brutal battle lasted for weeks. The nuclear giants forged entirely new channels through the dark, frozen wastes, carefully towing ship after ship out of their icy prisons. Sailors worked out on the frozen decks in blinding storm winds, manually securing massive steel towing cables. It became the most legendary rescue operation in maritime history. Thanks to the flawless courage of the crews and the limitless, unyielding power of the nuclear reactors, every single blocked vessel was successfully guided back to open water. From that historic moment on, the game changed forever. Nuclear icebreakers now maintain an eternal, permanent watch over the polar latitudes, standing as unstoppable guardians of the sea. Today, the once impenetrable northern sea route is under their absolute ironclad protection. No matter how dark the polar night gets, and no matter how thick the ice grows, the nuclear kings of the Arctic will always break through.